Hi everyone, my name is Kelsey Reardon and I am one of the marketing coordinators here at the Maine SBDC. Thank you for joining us today for this exciting business reboot webinar with Lori Allen. This is a three-part series, so today is part one. And we'll be going into mostly marketing things today, but there are two more sessions going into financials and management or operations. So definitely register for those webinars on our website as well if you would like to get the updated emails. It will be the same link as today's call. So if you want to join, you can just click through that same link, but if you want to get those handy dandy reminders that you get from me, you'll want to register on our website. So today we have Lori Allen from AvCog. She's a Maine SBDC business advisor, and she is very passionate about business plans. She believes they are living, breathing, functional things that you should be continuously working on. And so she's going to give you some really great suggestions and tips on how to do that today. Please keep yourself muted, but feel free to submit any questions into the chat. Definitely introduce yourself. Let us know where you're calling in from, what industry you're in, if you want to let us know your business name, or put a link to your website. Definitely share as much information as you want with this group. It's a great networking opportunity. And again, we'll be open to questions at the end, so you could save them or put them in. We'll kind of keep an eye out. And yeah, other than that, I'm going to pass it along to Lori.
Great, thank you so much, Kelsey. I'm actually going to turn my video off just to make sure we have enough bandwidth. I'm going to be sharing my screen with a presentation as well as a video. So you'll just be hearing me and then I'll pop back in. I did put a little intermission in the presentation so we can kind of chat midway through and then continue on. So I'm just going to turn my video off, which hopefully will help with our bandwidth. Stop video. All right, so as Kelsey said, I am really pro business plan. I think that regardless of the size of your business, regardless of the type of your business, having a plan is really important. There's that old adage, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Now, obviously you can't plan for everything. And 2020 is a great example of not being able to plan for everything. But having some semblance of a plan to fall back on is a good idea, not just for the health of your business, but for your own mental health as well. So a couple things I just want to throw out there. One is that we do work with businesses across the lifespan. I thought off and I didn't stop video. There we go. Okay, so we work with businesses across the lifespan. So some of you have been in business 5 or 10 years. Others of you, maybe a year or two. Some of you may be just starting out. That's okay. I think there's going to be something here for everyone to learn from, but I am going to really start out with some basics and build. So if this is something you've been doing for a while, just bear with me for the first 10 minutes or so and we'll get into the good stuff, I promise. But I do want to make sure that we're all starting from the same point of understanding. And you know, some of you have business plans already that need to be updated. Maybe you did it 5 or 10 years ago and you never looked at it again. Or maybe you're in the process of writing a new one. It's all good. It's all good. But just want to throw it out there. The other thing is that we do have a wide range of industries represented here today. And so, you know, a lot of marketing does get into very industry specific things. So as we go through today, if you have questions that are really specific to your situation, your industry, save them and reach out to the SBDC advising team. If you don't have an advisor, we can hook you up with one. But we're going to be taking kind of a broad brushed overview today and really kind of focus on some things that you can do regardless of what industry you are in to kind of build your marketing plan and build some new strategies into your business. So if you've sat on any of my workshops in the past, you know I like to start out with why. Why is this important? Why are we doing this? First and foremost, it's really important to work on your business just as it is to work in your business. And I work with you guys every day, so I know that time is not something you have a ton of, but it's really important to step back every once in a while and evaluate where you are. And it's particularly important this year because it's been such a crazy year. You may not know where you are. And so taking the time to really step back and evaluate where you are and plotting a course forward is really important. Second of all, there's still a ton of uncertainty out there. You know, it's pretty clear. I know back in March and April, we thought by now this whole COVID thing would be over. And here we are, it's November and we're still right in the thick of it. So, and there's a lot of stuff that it's out of our control. We can't control certain things, but there are things we can control and focus on. And I think that's going to be really helpful. Third, you know, a lot of businesses are still struggling because of COVID, because of other, you know, just the general economy. Maybe you're just starting to struggle now. Some of you, maybe you're in a rural part of Maine where you've never really had to worry about marketing before because, you know, you just got your customers word of mouth and marketing wasn't something you had to pay attention to, and now you do. And so it's time to really sit down, plan a path forward, and understand you may need to plan a couple of different paths forward. Depending on the type of business you're in, you may need a couple of different pathways in terms of, okay, this is scenario A. If I can operate 100% capacity, this is what I'm going to do. If I can only operate 50% capacity, what do I do? If things get shut down again, and I've got to switch to, you know, takeout or delivery or curbside, what does that look like? How would my marketing needs change? So this may be a multi-pronged, multifaceted plan that we're going to do this year because it's such a weird year. And, you know, it's time to, you know, dig in, get creative, and really figure out what next steps we can take. So I said we were going to start out with some basics, and I'd like to start out with just what is marketing? And I know that probably, maybe that's a weird thing to ask, but I like this definition. It's the process of getting customers to choose your product or service. Now, let me tell you why I like this definition. One is that marketing is, in fact, a process. I think a lot of times we think it's just something we do and hope it lands. You know, it's like the spaghetti against the wall and you hope it sticks. But marketing really is a process. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It also has evaluation. I think a lot of times we forget to really look at the evaluation piece of it. Is what we're doing with our marketing actually working? Is it actually creating new customers? Is it actually leading to sales? Or are we just kind of throwing money out into the nether regions and hoping it works? The other reason I like this is because it's about getting customers, and marketing really needs to be customer focused. So for example, I know some of you, the last thing you want to do is have a Facebook page, and you don't want to have a Facebook page, and that's fine. But if your customers are women over 40, if that's your target demographic, they're on Facebook, and you need to be where your customers are. So when you're looking at your marketing strategy, you need to not just be thinking about what you are and what your values are and where you are in the marketplace, but where are your customers? And you need to be able to meet your customers where they are. The third thing I like about this definition is the choice piece of it. Customers always have a choice. No matter how unique your product or service is, you have a choice. And maybe that choice is simply not to choose your product, to walk away altogether, but there's always a choice involved. And so part of your role is to figure out how to convince people to engage in your business and purchase your product. Okay. So I am going to attempt to show you guys a video, and we'll see how this works. It worked yesterday. Kelsey and I tried it out, and I'd like this video. It is, where did it go? Where did it go? There it is. Sorry guys, hold on. Okay. I like this video, even though it is a little dated. It's by a gentleman named Guy Kawasaki, and he worked for Apple Computer back in the early days of Apple. And he's now like a speaker. He has several books out. I really like this because it gets to what we call your value proposition. And I think for many businesses, many small businesses, this is something we don't think about, or if we have thought about this year, it's time to really rethink. What is our niche? What is making us unique? Where can we stand out in the marketplace? So I'm going to play this. Hopefully it's going to work. If not, you guys are going to get the slides and after the session, and you can watch it yourself. I will just throw out a caveat. This was done several years ago, so some of the examples are a little dated. There is a little political joke at the end. It's referring to the George Bush Jr. administration. It is not a commentary on today's current political situation. But the only other example of this I could find had a lot of expletives in it, so I didn't want to share that one. And I first found this, I used to do a lot of work teaching a program called Boots to Business for veterans. It's an SBA program for veterans who are trying to get out of they're getting out of the service and starting their own business. So hopefully you will find this as helpful as I do. I think it's a great, succinct way of thinking about value proposition.
The sixth thing is to niche thyself. This is all the marketing you ever need to know. It's also probably all the R&D and product design you ever need to know. I think that this chart can explain basically all of marketing and product design. On the vertical axis is the ability to produce a unique product or service. On the horizontal axis is the value of that service or product to the customer. As you might suspect, this is going to be a 2x2. And as you might suspect, you're going to want to be high and to the right. But let's go through the other corners first. The first corner is where you provide something of great value to the customer, but there are 10 other competitors doing it. At that point, you have to compete on price because it is not a unique product or service. It's an ugly place to be. Another corner is where you provide something and only you provide it, but nobody wants it. That's where you're stupid. In lower and to the left is the absolute worst corner. That's where you provide something that nobody cares about and there are 10 ways to get it, and that's over here. That means you're a .com company. The prototypical example of a .com company was the ability to buy dog food online. That's why there's a dog food picture. You know, at the height of the .com phenomenon, you could buy a case of dog food online for 10% than what you would pay for by driving to a brick and mortar store, a PetMart or a Petco, right? You could save 10%. However, dog food is so heavy that you would pay $10 in shipping, which would be more than compensate for the 10% discount. So in effect, the dog food was of no value to the customer buying it online. However, there were 6 ways you could do it. There was pets.com, mypets.com, epets.com, ipets.com, lastminutepets.com, discountpets.com. There's 16 ways to buy dog food for more than you would pay in a store. That explains the .com phenomenon. So the holy grail of positioning in product design and marketing is to figure out how the hell you get into that corner where you are the single white tulip in a field of crappy other tulips. How do you do that? What is so unique about your product or service? It can be features, it can be price, it can be geographic location, it can be service levels. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, how is it unique? And by the way, that unique element better be valuable to the customer. An example of a company that I think is very high and to the right is Fandango. So Fandango allows you to buy a movie ticket before you go to the movie. So you really know you have a ticket and you can just zip through the line because they scan your printed out ticket, right? That's great value to the customer. And you can only buy it through Fandango. That company is high and to the right. So the basic proposition here is for you to be high and to the right. You can think of it as being like it's also probably all the R&D and
Okay. So let me get back to PowerPoint here. Slideshow from current slide. So hopefully you guys were able to see that, and I apologize, my cursor was moving around. I was trying to make sure I wasn't missing anything in the chat, but the idea is to make sure that your business is positioned in that what he calls high and to the right. You have a really highly unique product and it has high value. And value is not just about price, okay? Value can mean a whole bunch of different things. My high and right to the example is actually back at Easter time. If you remember, Easter was right when the state shutdown happened. We were all hunkered down. And I have a young daughter who was all excited about the Easter bunny coming. And, you know, my husband has a health condition. We were really concerned about leaving the house. And I found out about a local toy store that was doing Easter baskets and delivering them. And so I was able to call the toy store, locally owned small store, spent about 10 minutes on the phone with someone, told her all about my daughter, what she liked, what she didn't like, what my budget was, and they put together a little gift basket, you know, an Easter basket. And a couple days later, it showed up on the porch during nap time, and it was great. Did I pay a little bit more for it? Absolutely. Was I more than happy to pay a little bit more for it because I didn't have to go running around? Absolutely. That was something, it's a unique service. It was very unique to what was going on in the world, and it was a tremendous value to me. And honestly, so much so that I hope they do it again next Easter, because I'm telling you, running around, if you're a mom or you've ever done a kid's Easter basket, you know, it's not the most fun thing. You're running around like trying to find different things. So even in a time such as this, there are opportunities where you have to come up with some creative ideas to niche yourself, niche your products, niche your business. So then the question becomes, what are we going to do? If you're an existing business owner and you have a plan, I want you to go dust it off. Haul it out, you know, maybe you've saved it on a hard drive somewhere, maybe it's sitting on a shelf, you printed it out, but pull it out. I want you to kind of look at your mission statement, your goals, your objectives. You know, what's changed? Things may have changed a lot depending on how long ago it was you did this plan. You want to look at your marketing strategy, and this may make you chuckle, because a lot of times we start our business and we think we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and 2 years later, it all goes out the window, which, by the way, is why it's so important to keep revisiting this, because things do change. So as you go through your original business plan, start making notes. What were your wins? What did you do well? What are the discrepancies? What didn't go so well? There may be things in there that you wanted to do and you completely forgot about. Like, oh yeah, I was going to do that thing and I completely forgot. And had I done it, you know, maybe things would be different. So just make notes and then kind of think about, you know, what's changed. Maybe you started out thinking you were going to have 4 or 5 different product lines, and maybe you've got way more or way less. Maybe you've realized you've changed your marketing tactics. Maybe your website, you never got your website up and running like you planned on. There are a million different possibilities, but just take your plan out, read through it, make some notes, and just kind of think about it. Now, whether you have a plan that you're updating or whether you're just starting out writing a plan, I want you to take stock. I want you to think about what we call the 5 P's of marketing. And we're going to go through each of these: people, promotions, pricing, products, and place. The first thing, and perhaps the most important thing, is people. Who are your customers? If you're an existing business, this is great. You know who your existing customers are. Hopefully you know. If not, you know, who do you want your customers to be? Who are your target market? What do they look like? What's their income level? Where do they live? Where do they shop? And then also kind of think about, what problem or need are you solving, and who are you solving it for? Because if you are a high-end restaurant on the coast of Maine, where, you know, you're targeting high-income people who are going to spend $200 or $300 for a nice dinner, your marketing and your goals and objectives are going to be very different than someone who is up in rural Maine and has a little convenience store and you're doing pizza and subs for the local folks, right? It's a different target market. And I want you to be really focused on what your target market is. If you're a restaurant, your target market is not just simply hungry people. If you are a bakery, you can't just say, I'm serving hungry people. You need to get really granular and really specific about what problem or need you're solving and who you're solving it for. And then finally, think about and really try to articulate what is your unique value proposition. Again, value, price may be a component of value, but it's not everything that goes into value. And so think about, what are you doing differently? What unique thing can you do that no one else is doing? And how can you best serve your target market? The second thing I want you to take stock of is your promotions. What are you doing now? What do you have in place? Do you have a website? Is it optimized? Can you do sell from your website, or is it simply a placeholder where people find out about you? Can they actually buy stuff off your website? Social media, what social media platforms are you using? Do you have a Facebook page? Do you have a Twitter account? Do you have Instagram? What are you using currently? What's out there? And you may not know what's out there. I recently worked with a client who was purchasing a business, and he said, no, there's no Facebook page for the business. And I did a search and I actually found 3. They were all old, and it turned out they'd been created by former employees, but they were out there. And so if you search for the business, you were going to land on these Facebook pages that hadn't been updated in years. So, a few years ago, everybody thought they needed to have a presence on every social media platform. So just take stock. There may be some things out there that you don't know about. What kind of advertising, if any, are you doing? Are you running ads, any ads in your local paper? Are you running ads on TV or radio spots? And then alternatively, what kind of public relations have you been doing? Now, the difference between advertising and PR is pretty simple. Advertising is stuff you pay for. So if you have taken out an ad in the Portland Press Herald and you've paid for it, that is advertising. If you donate money to your local rec department so they can buy softball equipment for the local softball team, and you get a big fake check made up, and the paper comes and takes a picture of you and says, Mike, this company donated this money to the town rec center, and it goes in your local paper, that's public relations. And public relations is a really critical part of your marketing strategy. And we're going to talk, again, we'll talk more specifically about that later when we get into the strategic part of it. But if you're doing anything PR related, make sure you've captured that in terms of what you're doing now. Pricing. Now, pricing is one of those things that sort of straddles 2 pieces. It impacts your marketing. It also impacts your financial. And we're going to cover the mechanics of pricing next week in the financial section of this. In this case, the pricing is really more, where's your pricing in terms of the market and your demographics? So again, are you more of a high-end place? Are you catering, are you selling things at the midpoint? Where are you? Where is your pricing? Fourth is products. What's your products look like? What are you selling now? Do you know what your best sellers are? Hopefully you do. Hopefully you have a system in place. Maybe it's your point of sale system where you can actually see what's selling and what's not selling pretty easily. If not, you may have to do some digging and kind of look through your orders and look through your sales receipts and see, okay, this is selling, this is not. If you offer services, what services are you seeing more demand for than others right now? Finally, place. Do you have a brick and mortar, or are you online, or both? Do you have multiple locations? Sometimes one of the things that we've been faced with lately is businesses having to really cut back on their locations and maybe even cut back on their hours. And so having the knowledge of, which places are having better sales, or, being able to make the transition online, that's really critical, because again, if we head into another shutdown, you're going to have that information to be able to make an informed decision of what the best thing to do is. Similarly, with your busiest sales and days and times, if you're seeing your sales dip and you think, I've been open 7 days a week, I can't keep doing this, it doesn't make sense, I need to close a couple days a week. Do you know what your slowest days are? I worked with somebody recently, they're like, well, Mondays are usually slow, but last Monday was really busy, and I wouldn't want to I wouldn't just close on Monday because I might miss what I missed last week. Again, hopefully you've got some system in place, but if you don't start tracking, even if it's like a clipboard by your cash register where you're tracking by the hours, like, okay, I had 5 customers at 10 a.m., but I didn't see anybody else until 2, because that's going to help you, again, target your marketing. So if for example, Thursdays are really slow, maybe you want to do some promotions on Thursdays to bring people in. Having that information, taking stock of how things are right now is really valuable. And obviously, I know this year's been weird, but it's also still important to know. You want to know where you're at so you can kind of plan for next year as well. So this is where you are now. And now we kind of have to turn and look at the world outside of us. And, 2020, there have been a lot of crazy things that have happened. We're fortunate that people are we're starting to get some data, starting to see some trends into what's happening. And this is going to also inform your marketing plan. We know, for example, that more people are buying more things online. So if you are not selling your products online, if you don't have a website, if you're not using, Etsy or some other online retail spot, now's maybe the time to think about that, because that's where folks are doing. That's where folks are right now. We also know that, there's increased health and safety concerns. And so you have to think about, what are you doing if you do just have brick and mortar? How are you communicating to your customers in your marketing efforts, what the health and safety measures your business is taking? That's going to be really critical going forward for the next year or so. We also see, even though there's high unemployment numbers right now, there's still some labor market challenges going on that may be impacting your business. My daughter's daycare, for example, they had to lay some staff off back in April. They're still not back up to full staff right now because they simply can't find the folks to work. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that our schools have gone hybrid and remote. And so that's really impacting the workforce right now, particularly women. So industries that typically have more women working in them, nursing, teaching, retail even, it's been difficult for folks to find employees right now. There's also been some industries like construction that weren't really impacted so much by shutdowns, and were really looking for workers anyway, and now they're really struggling to meet demand. A lot of us are doing home improvement projects right now. A lot of contractors, a lot of landscapers have been really busy this year, and they're having a hard time finding employees. We also have seen, an influx of out-of-staters and people who maybe they had a second home here and now they're living here full time. What opportunities does that present? What kind of challenges might that present for your business? So it's all about kind of looking at it internally as well as out in the world, what's going on. And now how do you pinpoint opportunities to pivot your business or focus on certain things and really hone your marketing efforts so that you are reaching the people you need to reach. So in your business plan, there's a couple ways you do this. We're going to talk about doing some market research. Now there's primary research and there's secondary research. Talk about primary research first. This is something that I think a lot of existing business owners kind of don't do. And I wish they did more of, And I acknowledge that this year is a little bit challenging, but it's really important. You know, I worked in nonprofit fundraising for a while, and your best donor is someone who's already given to you, right? And it's similarly, your best customer is someone who's already bought from you. And the question is, how do you get them to come in more often? How do you get them to spend more money? And so focusing in on your existing customers, if you're an existing business, is really critical. It can really help you focus and grow. So do some focus groups. And you know, it might not be the best time to pull 10 people into a room for a couple hours, but maybe you do a Zoom focus group and have folks ask questions about your products, about your services. What do they wish you were doing differently? You know, have that conversation. And maybe it's you get somebody else to actually lead the group and you kind of look at it afterwards. But they can be really, really helpful. Or if you have like a new product idea to kind of bounce it off folks, using focus groups can really be informative for you. Another thing you can do is customer interviews. My daughter is obsessed with dolls, and I found out from a former coworker that she was working with a startup in Massachusetts. She's launching a new line of dolls, so I bought one for my daughter for Christmas. And about a week later, I got an email from Northeastern University, the marketing, I think it was a graduate marketing class. They had partnered with the company owner to do some market research for the owner. And so we did, I don't know, a 45-minute Zoom interview, and they asked me a slew of questions about, you know, why did I choose this company? What was I interested in? What did I think about their Instagram page? And tons of feedback on their product line. And so that's something that you guys might want to think about. There's plenty of universities in Maine, you know, maybe your high school, maybe the DECA, I can never remember what DECA stands for. It's like distributive education, but it's like a marketing extracurricular thing. You know, they may be looking for projects that they can do online right now, but those are a great way to get some really detailed feedback about your business and what your marketing efforts might look like. Email surveys are another great way to get feedback. You can do polls. A lot of social media outlets right now have the ability to do polls online. And then finally, you know, talk to your existing or target customers. You just talk to them and ask them questions. And there are just some examples here, but, you know, even just the simple thing of how did you hear about us? What made you come in today? Those are going to help you define where to focus your marketing efforts. So if someone says to you, oh, you know, I found you on Facebook and you know, 10 people, you start hearing that over and over again, you know that it's worthwhile to focus on building your Facebook page. If people start telling you, well, I saw you as I drove by, you know, maybe your business is on a well-traveled route like Route 1 or 196, and well, I've been driving by and I just finally happened to be in town when you were open. That's something that might inform your marketing decisions as well. Maybe you need a bigger sign out front. Maybe that's worthwhile. So talking to customers, if you have like regular customers that you know that come in a lot or you deal with on a regular basis, say to them the next time they come in, hey, would you mind, you know, maybe having a phone conversation and just giving me some feedback? It's going to help you. It's going to help you focus. The next kind of research is secondary research. And this is where, you know, people have done research, they've done the homework for you and they've kind of put it together. And this will also help you, again, whether you're updating or doing your business plan for the first time, really digging into data, you know, census data, market data, what's going on in your industry. You know, you can always get online and find a lot of good information, but I would encourage you, this is not where you start, you know, finding stuff off Wikipedia. You do want to find some reputable internet sources. You know, Forbes, Inc. magazine, and Wall Street Journal. You may find, you know, national trends about your industry. Here in Maine, obviously, the local papers are always doing stories on different industries and things here in Maine. Maine Biz has a lot of information as well. They periodically do reports and surveys and things like that that may help you. If you're working with an SBDC advisor, we have access to some resources as well. One is called Vertical IQ that we can pull ourselves. We also have our SBDC has a research service that we can pull some data for you. It does take a few weeks to get back, but there are resources out there that can help you shape your target market and help you shape your target market and your marketing strategy. Another resource is your local library, particularly if you're in, the Bangor area, Portland, Lewis and Auburn, the larger metropolitan areas with larger libraries. They may have some online databases that if you have a library card, you can just get on from home and pull some information from those databases. And then depending on your industry, you may find that there's the state agency website, trade associations, particularly for tourism related businesses, there's a ton of data out there on, occupancy rates and travel days and things like that, that may really help shape your marketing efforts. And then finally, your local chamber of commerce may have really specific regional or local data that you can glean some information about your marketing efforts. So all of these things are worthwhile to really build your market research and help hone in on your target market, your demographics, and where these folks are and where it's worthwhile to spend your marketing time and dollars. Another related to all this is researching your competition. Now, if you've been in business for a few years, you may find that your competition when you started is very different now. Chances are half of them have closed. Chances are another few have cropped up. So are you really on top of who your competitors are right now? Both your direct competitors as well as your indirect competitors. So just as an example, if I own a bakery in a downtown area, my direct competitors would be any other people in the downtown area who also sell baked goods. But there's also indirect competition as well. Maybe people are buying bakery items from the local Hannaford's. That's indirect competition. Maybe people are also buying things online, buying brownies online. Maybe they're buying cupcakes online. So you want to think about your direct competitors as well as your indirect competitors. And then think about down the line, future. Who may be your competitors in the future? Maybe if you're slated to have some significant growth, maybe your competitors are going to change. Maybe if you shift your product line or increase your product line, your competitor is going to shift in the future. And then finally, who are market leaders in your industry? You want to think about that. And it's not enough, when you're working on your plan, particularly if you're planning to go for financing, it's not enough to just say, okay, here's my 3 top competitors and, here's their websites. You really want to dig in and look at, what are their products and services? How are they doing their own marketing efforts? You can learn a lot by just looking at people's websites, your competitors' websites, because a lot of times you can get a sense of what their pricing is, what their product lines are, where they're marketing, and you can just do a Google search and you can discover, oh, they ran an ad in the Press Herald last week or something like that. You can find out a lot online now. What's their pricing structure? How are they promoting themselves? And then fundamentally, what are they doing well? What do you think you can do better, or what you are doing better? And what can you learn from that competition? And so again, when you're going for financing, the banks are going to look that you have really dug into the competition and what's out there, and then what value you're bringing, what unique thing that you are bringing to the table. So competition. And what you may do is a chart like this, where you've got your company, you've got company 1, 2, and 3, your top 3 competitors. And it's good to have at least 3. I wouldn't get too, I wouldn't do any more than 5 for your business plan, because you really do want to focus. And you kind of want to list out your strengths, your weaknesses, and so you have a comparison chart. Now, every once in a while, I get somebody who says, I don't have any competitors. Nobody's doing what I'm doing. Well, that's rarely true. Rarely is no one doing what you're doing. It may be that no one's doing what you're doing locally. But again, the internet is a huge competitor right now. If you really think you have no competition, you need to really be able to back that up, because chances are somewhere out there, there is a competitor. And if not a competitor, an alternative. The next thing you want to do, and then we're going to pause and make sure we can answer some questions before we get into the strategy section of this presentation. But you want to do what we call a SWOT analysis. You're going to take all this information that you've pulled together, your internal stuff, you've looked outside at what's going on in your industry, you've looked outside at what's going on in the world, and you're going to sit down and say, okay, here are the strengths my business brings to the table. This is what we're really, really good at. Here are our weaknesses. And these weaknesses may be things like, okay, I need, maybe right now all my books are being done in ledgers and I really need to put them into, go to QuickBooks or some other online system. Maybe my weakness is I really don't know much about social media. How do I do this? How do I set up a Facebook page? Well, you can go get training for that, but those are the sorts of things you put on your weaknesses. Opportunities. Again, even now with all the world as crazy it is, there are opportunities out there. And as you've been able to sort of pinpoint opportunities, you can list those out. And then threats. And there's always a threat. And obviously, COVID is certainly an impact, could be a threat to your business. There may be workforce challenges, could be a million different things, but put this out there in a chart. And again, it's going to help you not only from determining your marketing efforts, but on the third session we do in the series is about operations, and we'll come back to the SWOT analysis then. But this can be really, really helpful to you to put together for yourself and your business. Okay. So I am going to just pause for a minute. I'm going to hopefully put myself back on video. And I am going to, can I see? Let's do stop share for a minute here. I'm trying to find the chat. Okay. Do you have any questions? Let's see, everybody's introducing themselves. If you've got questions about what we've done so far, what I've talked about, go ahead and put them in the chat. Storytelling, okay. Any questions? Anyone's thought already like, oh gosh, I need to do that, or oh, I'm gonna go do that right now? Anything? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Do you guys know how to do reactions? Okay, I got one thumbs up. That's good. 2 thumbs up. How do you prioritize the to-do list? Okay, we're going to talk about the to-do list next. We're going to talk about that, strategies. I think first and foremost is just sitting down, again, whether, I'm not sure if you're a new business or a existing business, but just looking at where you are right now, because that's going to dictate a lot of where you can go forward. Another thing, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, is knowing what your budget is. Some of you may have $20 to spend on marketing. Some of you may have a much larger budget to spend. And so that's also going to kind of dictate where you go from here. But I think just sitting down, going through an old plan, if you have one, looking at what you're doing now and moving on from there is really your priority. Know where you are right now. Any other questions? Okay, quiet group today. I am going to switch back. We'll jump back to the presentation. Screen share. Okay, and there's the chat. I'm going to go back to slideshow. Okay, and I'm going to take myself off video. Okay, so you've done all your homework, all the stuff, you've got all this information rattling around in your head, rattling around on pieces of paper. Now the question is, what do you do with it? How do we take all this information and actually create a marketing plan for your business? I am really going to focus on what I call marketing on a shoestring. Most of us don't have unlimited dollars to spend on our marketing efforts right now. If you do, you're probably going to go hire a marketing firm to do a lot of the stuff for you. And if that's you and that's your situation, that's great. You go do that. But most of the businesses I work with are sole proprietors, single member LLCs, and they're doing everything by themselves. They might have a few employees, but marketing primarily falls on their shoulders. And so these are all things that you can consider doing that they may be time consuming, but they're not going to cost you a ton of money. The first thing is to make sure you have a process in place of collecting customer contact information. Okay. If you want to do an online, an email newsletter, but you don't have your customer email addresses, that's going to be a little tough. The other thing is not just collecting them on piece of paper, but finding a way to get them into a usable format. So maybe you have a clipboard at your cash register and saying every time somebody comes in and buys something, hey, do you want to sign up for our newsletter? And they write their name and they write their email address. And but then you need to actually do something with that piece of paper. And that might be putting it in an Excel file. Maybe once a week you take that list and enter it into an Excel. Maybe you do Spring for Constant Contact or some other email marketing system. But you have to collect it and then actually use it. Another thing is networking. And right now, pre-COVID, networking was always important. It was always, always important in terms of building contacts, building customers. There are still networking opportunities out there right now. A lot of chambers are doing online networking events. In Auburn, there's a women's business group. I apologize, I'm not remembering the name off the top of my head, but they're doing online networking. This may be the time where if you don't have a LinkedIn page, you go create a LinkedIn page for yourself and start connecting with people online that way. It's really, really critical. And again, pre-COVID, I used to, when I first started having to do networking, and I'm the world's biggest introvert, I used to go to these networking things. I go to chamber events and I get people's business cards and I just stick them in my pocket. And I would never do anything with those business cards. Next time I wore that suit jacket, I would put my hand in my pocket and all of a sudden there were 5 business cards just sitting there. So, and I know a lot of you are like that too. So whenever you're connecting with someone, whether it's in person or online, you want to make sure that you're not just doing that connection, that there's some interaction, that there's a follow-up. And so those connections becomes a connection and in a relationship and not just, some random piece of paper in your pocket. That's really important. Another thing that people are starting to do are, educational speaking and workshops. Maybe your business is such that lends itself to where you could do like an online workshop for your customers. Maybe it's a free workshop, maybe it's a low cost workshop. There's a knitting store, a yarn store in Norway, Fiber and Vine. They've been having like a drop-in knitting workshop, event, doing classes online. That may be something that you can do now. Zoom accounts are you can get a Zoom account for free or next to nothing. So that may be something that lends itself well, especially right now, where you can connect with your customers online in a new and different format. And then also, if you're able to really present yourself as an expert on certain things, that can help you as you teach things, you do a workshop, people can follow up and say, hey, you know what, I want to hire you to help me do this work that I don't think I can do for myself. And that's really, especially if you're doing any business to business, B2B work, that may be helpful to you to consider doing. Press releases. This is something, again, More so with our local papers than the regional papers right now, but a lot of my clients have had really good success with writing press releases when, you know, they're opening their new business, or they're launching a product, or they're doing something that's newsworthy, getting the local paper to cover it. Some of our local papers, if you send them a price release, they will print it verbatim, or they'll come out and do a story on you. A lot of our newspapers right now are really, they know small businesses are hurting and they want to help and they want to do stories and they want to tell people stories if you're doing anything really creative, or how you're coping with a pandemic. And so there may be some opportunities there for you to tell your story without having to pay to tell your story. Email marketing, you know, sending out email newsletters, sending out email promotions, coupons, anything like that. I know we get saturated with emails, but at the same time, it is a very inexpensive way to connect with your customers. You know, and it also helps kind of breed loyalty. Like I lived in Massachusetts for a while, and there were still some stores that I go to that I'm still on their mailing list, and I'll see like, oh, you know, they got this really fancy yarn in, and I'll go online and order some yarn from them. So you never know how people are gonna and what they're gonna react to if you don't try. You might want to think about writing some articles. And again, it kind of depends on what your expertise is and what your product lines are, but maybe writing articles either for the local paper, maybe a trade group, maybe a local magazine. Lots of opportunities there, but if you are a writer, if you like to write, that might be a great way of getting yourself and your business out there. Maybe you do a blog, and not necessarily a paid blog, but as part of your website, a part of a way of people finding you online as an expert or as a provider of a very unique item. Great way to promote it or promote your industry. Videos are getting more and more prevalent as a way of connecting with people, partly because the quality of cell phones, our smartphones and cell phone video and video cameras, they're really they're pretty high quality now. And so they're easier to do. And you can use videos on your website. You can share them on your social media pages. There's YouTube. A few months ago, I had a client I was working with. She asked me if she should do anything on TikTok. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what TikTok is. I didn't know it was a thing. And so I got online, and then I talked to my teenage nieces, and they told me all about TikTok. And there are some small businesses on there who are doing videos on TikTok and doing really well at reaching a new customer base. So it might be worth looking into it. I will warn you, I have wasted more time on TikTok and Pinterest during the pandemic than I probably should admit. They're definitely rabbit holes that you can fall down into, but they may be worthwhile. Finally, I really want you to monitor any online reviews. So whether it is Yelp, Google reviews, Facebook reviews, if you do anything on like Airbnb or VRBO, any other kind of site where they do reviews, you should Google yourself once in a while, Google your business, and see what people are saying out there about you. And really monitor them and keep on top of it and make sure that there's not a common pattern. So for example, if you keep seeing people complaining, if you own a restaurant and people are routinely complaining about slow service, well, you might have a problem that you need to deal with. Alternatively, if someone has a legitimately bad experience with your business, and it happens, best of plans, every once in a while, something's going to go wrong, address it and address it in a way that is showing that you genuinely care about fixing the problem. Sometimes you'll see reviews where people have had a bad experience and the owner comes back and just totally just accelerates the situation. And so it becomes this weird argument thing. And you all know, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just spend some time on Yelp and you'll see it really quickly. or Google reviews, but you do want to keep on top of what people are saying online about your business. It's really, really important. I also want you to think about, what is the right social media platform for your business? It used to be, when social media started becoming a thing, we all felt like we had to race out and have an account on every platform. And then we got so overwhelming because you can't possibly do every platform, especially if it's just you. So pick the one or two that make the most sense for your target market. So for example, if your target market is women over 30, over 40, you want to be on Facebook. If you want to target people under 30, or you have a really visual business, for example, maybe you're a florist, maybe you are a clothing merchant, maybe if you're a baker and you're doing really fancy cakes, you're in the wedding industry, Instagram, you want to make sure you have an Instagram account. Twitter has really sort of evolved and changed over the years. Most of you probably don't need a Twitter account unless you are, what I would consider a thought leader, or you're really sharing very specific content. Most of the Twitter users are actually outside the United States. So if you have a business that's focused internationally, maybe it makes sense to have a Twitter account. I was also interested to learn that more adults actually use YouTube than Facebook, and more men use YouTube than Facebook. And especially these days, and you think about it, being here in quarantine, and how many of us have had to go watch a YouTube video on how to fix something in our house, or how to do some DIY project in our house because we don't leave the house these days. So YouTube is a great way to reach people through videos. And then, if you're doing business to business marketing, LinkedIn is really important. Have a LinkedIn presence for yourself and your business. And so choose one or two. I would rather see a business do one or two social media platforms and do them well than have scattershot, inconsistent postings, anything like that. And once you've decided on one or two social media platforms that make sense for you, create a posting schedule and stick to it. And again, this is a situation where I'd rather have you post once or twice a week and make those posts valuable to your clients and customers than just scattershot posting something every day just to make sure you're, because then you get into sort of spamming people, and then we don't want to get into that territory. We want to make sure that your marketing is really targeted and it makes sense, and it's going to result in having customers come into your business and buy stuff. So create a posting schedule that you can live with, and make sure your content is really on point, and you're going to have a much better experience in your marketing efforts. Remember back at the beginning, I said marketing was a process. We often forget to actually track the marketing that we're doing. And I've had a number of horror stories over the years. I've been doing business counseling now for almost 10 years. And, I had one client she had a cleaning service, and she was spending $500 a month to run ads in her local, it's one of those newspapers that, you get in your mailbox, and she spent $500 a month on these. And so said to her, I said, well, so how many, calls are you getting off these ads? And she's like, well, I get one or two a month. And I was like, one or two a month? And I said, well, how many of them are actually hiring you to come clean their houses? And she said, well, if I'm lucky, one. And just by asking these questions of her, I could see the blood drain from her face, because she was realizing that she was spending $500 a month on these ads. And even though they were reaching her target demographic, they weren't worthwhile. She might as well have been just flushing $500 a month down the toilet. So whatever you're doing, whether it's, free social media posts, whether you're actually spending money on things, you want to track it. And there's different ways you can track it. Coupons, you can barcode things, you can offer checkout codes. You see it online a lot, mention our Facebook page and get 10% off your first order. Find ways that you can actually track the results of your marketing efforts, because if you're particularly if you're spending money on things that aren't working, stop spending money. And another client, and again, this was in Massachusetts a long time ago, but she started doing radio spots, and for a variety of reasons, she racked up a $70,000 bill with this one radio station, and never got anything out of the ads that were run. And so again, you can lose a lot of money very quickly if you're not paying attention to the outcomes. And just in terms of time, don't waste your time. If you're not tracking revenue, tracking anything, if you're not getting any results, don't keep doing it, right? You also want to be clear on what results you're actually looking for. Are you trying to increase foot traffic? Are you trying to increase the number of sales? Are you trying to increase your average dollar sale? So maybe right now your average sale, somebody comes in and spends 20 bucks. Maybe you want to get that up to 30, right? So you offer some promotions, but track it. Make sure it's actually working. And then you want to be able to calculate what we call your return on investment. The amount of money you spend on something, amount of money you've earned minus the money you spent. So if you spend $200 to run an ad and you wind up getting $1,500 worth of business out of that one ad, well, maybe it makes sense to run it again. If you spend $200 in an ad and you don't get any customers off that ad, probably don't want to run it again. So tracking your marketing efforts is really critical. It's that last step, and then evaluate it. You want to track it. If it's not working, pull the plug, try something different. Wanted to talk to you about some common pitfalls we see in marketing efforts. One is relying on word of mouth. And I think I mentioned this too at the beginning, where a lot of our businesses, particularly in rural areas, we rely on word of mouth. People will go to ball games, they'll go to concerts, they'll be out and about, and they'll tell their neighbor, they'll tell their aunt about their experience in your business, and the next thing you know, their aunt is one of your new customers. The reality, though, is that we're not gathering the way we used to gather, right? We're not necessarily taking our kids to their soccer and basketball games anymore. We're not going to family reunions now as much. And so you can't rely on word of mouth alone just to get people through your door or buy products from your website. You do need to expand your efforts to actually market your business, especially now. Second common pitfall I see, and I just talked about this, was not tracking outcomes results. I see a lot of clients just, again, it's like spaghetti against the wall. They're just doing it because they think they should do it and they don't know if it's actually working or not. Make sure that whatever you're doing in terms of your marketing strategies are actually working. Letting bad online reviews go unaddressed or addressed inappropriately. I mentioned this before as well, but if someone has an issue with you, if I just as a consumer, if I am looking for a business and I see online that someone complained, but the owner has replied and said, "Oh, I'm sorry you had this experience. Please contact me and we'll talk about it. We'll make it right." Or it makes me feel better that it was kind of a one-off. And again, like we all know, people have bad days. We have bad, whatever. It happens. But if there's consistently bad reviews, or if there's a bad review where the owner has totally gone off and called the poster every name in the book, I'm just going to be like, you know what? I'm not going there. I don't know what kind of experience I'm going to have. Not worth it. So address those online reviews and address them appropriately. Another common thing I see is just inconsistent messaging across platforms. So maybe your Facebook page says you're open 7 days a week, 10 to 5. But then you go to your website and it says you're closed on Sundays and Mondays. Which is it? If it's a Monday, I don't know if you're open or not. And that means I'm going to have to take another step to actually pick up the phone and call you. And we don't like to call each other anymore. So make it easy, make sure that whatever information you're sharing across your social media platforms and your website is consistent and it's correct. Another thing I see a lot of is restaurants who don't have menus, or if they do have menus, it's like a picture of a menu and it's a really crappy picture and you can't really tell what the prices are or what's actually in the products that they're selling. So if you have a restaurant, or for that matter, anything, make sure that whatever you're advertising is clear and that people can actually decide, make a decision as to whether to come to your place or not. I see a lot of Facebook pages that haven't been updated in years, old Twitter accounts, Instagram accounts that have one picture and nobody bothered to go back and update it again. If you've got old accounts, and you know you're never going to use them, just clean them up, delete them. Or if you have them and you've just gotten lax, you find the time to update them, even if it's just an hour a week. Carve it out to make it worthwhile, because people are finding you there, and if they're not seeing current content, they may assume you're out of business and not bother to go to your website or not bother to pick up the phone. And then finally, we know from all sorts of research and publications out there that women make up to 90% of household purchasing decisions. And time again, I see businesses not take that into consideration. And so sometimes it's as simple as, I go get my oil change and all the magazines at the oil change place are like car and driver, and, I could care less. Sometimes it is if you're offering services such as, if you're an electrician, you're a plumber, you're coming into people's homes. Keep in mind that you want to make sure that the women are feeling comfortable, and you're not just making a lot of assumptions about who's making the decisions in the family, because again, statistically, women are making the household decisions, and you may think that men are your target audience, but it may actually be their spouses, their wives who are making those decisions. And so you need to be a little bit careful about how you're marketing, because it may be the women that are actually making the decision to bring you into the home. Next, and this is just sort of an aside, but I think it's really important. As you're developing your marketing materials, whether it's your website, whether it's maybe you're doing a rat card, don't be afraid to tell your story. I think your stories are so powerful. As I work with so many of you now, you've started businesses for some really powerful reasons, some really personal reasons. And don't be afraid to tell people that. Don't be afraid to connect with people. For example, if you're a therapist and you focus on helping kids with, and you came to work with kids because you yourself has a child with a specific issue, talk about that, because it's going to help validate you. It's going to validate your expertise. People are going to say, oh, she has firsthand experience in what she's doing, and that matters. So whatever your journey was to becoming a business owner, don't be afraid to tell it, and don't be afraid to get personal. And again, particularly with women-owned businesses, it can be really, really important. A lot of women start businesses because they had a problem and then they found a solution, and they want to be able to share that solution with other people. And that is an incredibly valuable marketing tool. So don't be afraid to tell your story. So now we're going to develop your marketing strategy. You want to think about what your SMART goals are. And for those of you who don't know, SMART means specific. So for example, increase sales revenues by 10%. It's a very specific goal that is also measurable. You can measure it. You can track, have your sales increased or decreased. Attainable. Okay, is it realistic? Your goal should not be, I'm going to increase my revenue by 70% next year. That's not a realistic goal. It's not attainable. Probably not attainable. You also want to make sure that your goals are relevant or meaningful, and you're not just trying to pick some sky in the pie goal because you think you should. You know, make it meaningful and relevant to your business. And then finally, put some time limits on these goals. So what do you want to achieve with your marketing strategies in the next 3 months, in the next 6 months, or annually? Be really specific about that. You want to think about what your budget is. And again, your budget may be $20 and the first marketing thing you're going to do is you're going to you're going to order business cards because you've never had business cards before. That's perfectly fine. Depending on what your budget is, you may want to say, okay, this is the year that I'm going to invest $5,000 or $10,000 in developing a website. I'm going to do it. I got to do it. It's all up to you. It's all about what your budget is going to determine. You have decisions, you have options regardless of what your budget is. I also want you to think about your timeline. What are your most important sales times of year? For some of you, it may be you're maybe looking ahead to the next tourist season, Memorial Day. Some of you may be looking at the holidays right now. What's your busiest season? What do you need to accomplish to make those sales happen and make sure that you're meeting your targets? I also want you to kind of look at, what 3 new things can you do in the coming year to reach your marketing goals? Maybe that's website. Maybe that's, okay, you know what? I'm actually going to have a Facebook page and I'm going to post on Facebook now. Maybe it is, this is the year that I'm actually going to take my customer information and use it. I'm going to actually do a newsletter. I'm going to actually email people coupons this year. And then finally, setting up a system, setting up a calendar. This is what we're going to do this year. And also who's responsible and who's accountable. And again, I get it. If you're sole proprietor, if it's just you, it's all on you. But maybe this is the year that you hire somebody part-time to help you. Maybe you actually go out and hire a marketing firm to do this for you. Again, it all depends on your budget, but make sure that it's clear who's responsible for doing what and who's going to be accountable for it, so that this time next year, you can really see, okay, these are the new things we implemented this year for our marketing strategy. This is what worked and we got it done. And now we can evaluate for 2022. I put together a list of some tools that may be of help to you as you move forward with your marketing strategies, marketing plans. There are some DIY websites out there. Wix, Squarespace, and Weebly are just 3 examples. I used to work someplace that had a workshop that was called Help My Friend Designed My Website. Websites can be very complicated. Websites can be very, very challenging. In an ideal world, this is something where you have a professional do it. At the same time, this year being as it is, it's probably better to have a website that's imperfect than not have a website at all. We talked about doing online workshops, online trainings, online focus groups. Zoom is a great tool. You can get a free account that you can do for up to 45 minutes. They also have paid accounts that are pretty inexpensive. There's Facebook Live for videos, YouTube videos. HubSpot is actually an inbound marketing company, but if you're willing to give them an email address, they actually have a lot of really great online marketing tools and templates that you may find handy. It's worth taking a look at. If you do use multiple social media accounts, there are some dashboards that you can use. Again, I think these are all fee-based, but there's Hootsuite, there's Sprout Social, and there's Dash This. They're all systems where you can make a post and you can set up a time and a date for the post to hit, and they can hit multiple platforms all at once. They're a great way that if you are using multiple social media platforms that you can set stuff up and just let it go. You can set a calendar up. Email marketing, there's Constant Contact. They are a fee-based service, but depending on the size, a lot of you, it would be really affordable to do. MailChimp is another. They have a free and paid options. And then if you wanted to do a customer survey, there's SurveyMonkey. SurveyMonkey has free and paid options. I will warn you that with SurveyMonkey, some of the better reports that you actually want, you do have to have a paid account for. So, but it might be worth just buying it for a month, doing this research, doing the survey that you need to do, and then canceling the account once you get the reports printed out. So, but it can be a really helpful tool in doing some market research. I also put together both a shopping and a reading list. One thing I've learned, working with adults over the years is that a lot of us are very visual people. A lot of the stuff about our business and about our marketing, it's all rattling around on our heads. And not all of us are great writers. And so sometimes it just helps to just have this visual tools and visual cues for all of this stuff. So if you go get they're big, like the easel pads, they're like the Post-it is just one brand where you can tear off the big easel pieces and just stick them to the wall, and you can write stuff up there. You can put it up on your wall. You can look at it for a while. You can also use like sticky notes and colored dot stickers to say, okay, here are the 10 things I want to do, and maybe the 3 green ones, you stick a dot for the highest priority. Just creating a visual map for yourself can be really helpful, and it helps get the stuff out of your head and on to paper and make it meaningful. Another thing you can do is get a big paper calendar too that you can stick on the wall, and so you can plot out your social media strategies for the years, map out your plan. If you know that you're going to have a big Memorial Day sale, start 6 weeks and from there and plot your strategy out to make sure that you're driving traffic into that for that specific weekend, for example. But those calendars on the wall can be really helpful. Another thing you can do, and some of you may roll your eyes at me, but again, I think it can be very helpful, is doing a vision board. And maybe you do a couple of vision boards. Maybe you do a vision board based on your ideal customer. Who's your target customer? What does she look like? What does she wear? What colors? And it kind of speaks to your branding. You may do one for your business, like what kind of things does your business evoke to you? And get some old magazines, get some scissors or glue and a piece of poster board. Doing those vision boards can really help you focus and on your target market, and the themes that might come out of it can be really powerful. Again, particularly if you have a visual business, a visual element to your business. Then I've also thrown in some reading material. Some of these folks you'll be very familiar with if you've gotten into marketing at all. A couple of them are more like Contagious, Why Things Catch On, and Malcolm Gladwell's The Tipping Point. They're more sort of philosophical and sort of big picture stuff, but I think are really helpful in thinking things through, particularly where they, with marketing and trends and finding out where you might be able to bring some unique value in. And then finally, my old standby, Simon Sinek, Start With Why. I can't recommend that enough. And if you're not a reader, he does have several videos online, both on YouTube and TED Talks, about his theory about why, and why telling your why is so important. People always want, a to-do list. So there are 4 things that you can start immediately today to do that I would recommend. One is a social media account audit. Again, you may be surprised at what's out there purporting to be under your business name. You may have some old accounts floating around that you've forgotten about. So just check. 2, check your online reviews, see what's out there, take a gander. You can check the various sites, but you can also do, like in a Google search, put your company name in quotes and then review and hit search, and you'll be surprised at what may come up. I would start a SWOT analysis. You're not going to finish a SWOT analysis today, but certainly, start thinking about doing a SWOT analysis. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Just off the top of your head. That would be a great step. And then finally, start talking and actually listening to your customers. I think that's really, really critical, particularly if you've been in a business a while. You might have hit a part where you've gotten a little comfortable and you think you know what everybody wants, and maybe that's not the case anymore. The world has changed, your customers have changed. It's time to start having some real conversations and figuring out maybe there's some opportunities out there that you're missing. So, and then finally, SBDC, we are here to talk to you one-on-one about any issues that you may have, including marketing. If you don't have an SBDC advisor, I would highly encourage you to reach out. You can go onto our website and just hit click advisor, request advising, and someone will get in touch with you. So that is the end of my presentation, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to video again, and I'm going to see, do we have any questions in the chat? Great presentation. Okay, good. I'm glad this is helpful. There's a lot of stuff out there, and it can be overwhelming, but just take it in little bites, do a little bit each day, and you'll be able to pull together a really good marketing plan and a strategy for the future, because it's gonna be a crazy year. So, all right. No other questions. Kelsey, do you have anything that you need to wrap up with?
No, that was great. Sorry, my lighting sort of changed throughout this presentation. I loved your follow-up task, so everyone should definitely make sure you do at least one of those things on the list. We'll be checking in during part 2 to see if you've done your homework. Not really, but we'll ask you to raise your hand probably if you did something. Yeah, so definitely keep an eye out for a follow-up email from me. It'll include the slide deck from today with any links, all of the to-do lists and the reading lists, and all of that will be included, as well as a recording of this session. So if there was anything that you wanted to go back and double check on, that'll all be available probably tomorrow.
Yeah, and I would just say over the next week, if there's specific issues you want to talk about related to pricing or financials, feel free to shoot me or Kelsey an email, and we'll make sure we can include that next week.
Yeah, definitely. You all have my email. You got several emails from me today alone. Anything at all that you'd like us to try and cover, I can pass that along to Lori.
Yeah, someone did just ask a question. I used to do Facebook posts, but got overwhelmed with all the work involved in posting. How do I find someone to help me post my business info? I would reach out to a SBDC advisor. We can talk to you about what specific things, but the overwhelm thing is real, and that's why I said even if you're just doing something every Wednesday morning, you've got a schedule. So you don't get overwhelmed, because I know there's a million other things you'd rather be doing than posting stuff on Facebook, but unfortunately, it's the way of the world right now, and so making that time, don't get overwhelmed. And yeah, connect with an advisor and we can help you with your specific issue. Facebook Marketplace. More Facebook Marketplace. It's a wild and woolly word. It's kind of like Craigslist used to be, where there's a little bit of everything on Facebook Marketplace. I think people are more using it like as a yard sale right now than really finding vendors. I don't know that it really depends on the type of bit. Like if you're an antique business, that might be a great place to try to sell stuff on Facebook Marketplace. But if you're a photographer trying to sell your services on Facebook Marketplace, you'd probably be better just doing targeted Facebook ads. So it really depends on your industry. Alrighty, well, thank you all for spending your lunch with us. I really appreciate it. I hope this was helpful. I hope this gave you some ideas and some forward momentum to focus on this. And good luck. We'll see you next week.